Estranged twins' cruel games led to unbearable betrayals. Now my husband's sister reignited my trauma, forcing me into legal battles for peace. I'm almost 30, female, with a fraternal twin sister who is younger by only minutes. My parents had us late, after years of fertility struggles, but their joy was quickly soured when doctors throughout the pregnancy predicted I was going to be a boy. The reality shattered their expectations, and I became the embodiment of their gender disappointment. That marked the start of a long, harrowing road of neglect, financial and emotional abuse, and scars that would stretch far beyond my childhood. My parents were irredeemable, and I severed all contact the day I left at 18. On the day I moved out, I asked for my basic documents, my birth certificate, social security card, IDs. They handed them over, accompanied by a cease and desist order telling me to never contact them again. And I never have. I rebuilt my life. At 21, I changed my name. My old one was unisex, a compromise in the war between what my parents wanted and what they got. I chose a name that resonated with the person I was finally free to become. I built my identity and my family out of nothing, but always looking over my shoulder, haunted by the past. Out of the blue, an email arrived at my work address, a professional account, under my new, legally changed name. It was from my estranged twin. The subject line, "I miss you." The contents, a melodramatic outpouring. She lamented how twins are supposed to be close, passive-aggressively demanding that our family be at my upcoming wedding. How she found out about it or my work email, I still don't know. I briefly considered that she'd had some kind of manic episode or memory lapse, because nothing about it felt real. Our relationship had always been poisoned. As children, when she realized she was my parents' golden child, she wielded that power with cruelty, hiding her belongings in my room, then sending Dad to get her stolen things, a ruse that usually ended in me being punished. Sometimes, my punishment meant being locked in the basement for days on end, let out only for meals or school, with nothing but a tiny, unfinished bathroom and a sink. Sometimes it meant bruises, or accidentally falling down the stairs. My parents' anger found me more often than not, but the worst betrayal was always from her. At 17, she pushed me down those basement stairs herself. I broke my arm, got a concussion, split open my scalp. My parents forced me to tell everyone it was a clumsy accident. 2 months after graduation, my friends gathered me up and helped me disappear. 3 weeks ago, my new life collided with the old in the most shocking way. My husband's little sister, 22, a wannabe influencer, posted about my estranged family on her blog. She didn't mention names, but the details were clear enough. Encouraged by internet strangers to heal the family rift, she decided to take matters into her own hands. What happened next upended everything. I suddenly began getting barrage after barrage of emails, then frenzied phone calls, and threats from my twin. I tried to protect myself, started the process for a restraining order, but settled on a cease and desist. Just as abruptly, the harassment stopped. I let myself breathe, thinking the worst had passed. I was so wrong. At dinner one evening in my husband's parents' house, my husband's sister stood up wearing a self-satisfied grin and said she had a surprise. Before I could even react, she announced that she'd driven my twin, over 26 hours from their state, so we could reunite and be a family again. I froze, adrenaline and dread pouring through me. My husband's parents hustled me to a back room, mortified. My husband began calling the police while yelling at his sister. The abuser, the woman who haunted my nightmares, the reason for my complex PTSD, sat in her car outside, waiting. When the police arrived, my twin played the victim, sobbing hysterically. My husband's family explained about the cease and desist. The officers gave her a formal warning, no arrests on first complaints in our state, then took her straight to the airport, sending her home at my SIL's expense. My sister-in-law was now completely ostracized. My husband and father-in-law told her in no uncertain terms how grievously she'd messed up. My mother-in-law, a former domestic violence advocate, refused to speak to her. She was furious that anyone would try to force a victim to face her abuser. My husband promised that from here on out, I had the final word on if or when I'd ever hear my SIL's apology. But I don't want her apologies. I don't want her near me ever again. Finding out what she did, knowing she'd heard my whole story, every brutal detail, and still believed my sister's lies, was a deeper betrayal than I could have imagined. I'd watched her grow up, had helped support and care about her for years. Now, I can't imagine ever letting her near my future children, or our lives, ever again. And all I feel is hurt, anger, and a hollowness I can't shake. I have no idea how to say this to her, how to communicate the depth of this pain. 3 weeks have passed, but I feel as raw as the day it happened. After days of anxiety and thinking, I took the advice of friends and decided to write a burn letter, pouring my feelings onto the page at work, not to send but to express. It helped, if only a little. My husband is totally behind me in my decision to send a formal cease and desist to my sister-in-law and make it clear, she is not welcome around us for the foreseeable future. I also told my mother and father-in-law that I don't ever want to see her again, and that she is never to set foot in our home, even for the holidays we'd planned to host. My mother-in-law wasn't upset by this. Frankly, she looked relieved. As for my SIL, she scrubbed her blog, removed every trace of my life, all the photos and birthday wishes, even the posts about my wedding. I hadn't realized how much of myself she'd put online, but at least she's complied with my wishes to erase it. With my twin and the rest of my former family, I've started legal steps to spare myself future intrusion. I booked therapy for the next 2 months and I'm looking into medication for my anxiety. I am moving forward, day by day, with people who respect my boundaries and the years it took for me to build a real life, one where I am safe, at last. Update 1. The attorney finally called. After 3 full weeks of tense waiting, our restraining orders have been approved. My parents, along with my sister, are set to be served with them this week, provided we have the correct address on file since they're clear on the other side of the country. I'm holding my breath, hoping all of this goes as planned. During those 3 weeks of limbo, emotions ran high. But after talking things over with my therapist, starting new anxiety medication, and reading the letter I wrote, but ultimately didn't send, to my sister-in-law, because I know she'd just use it for sympathy on her blog, I knew it was time to put myself first and stop the endless people-pleasing. It was finally time to open up to my in-laws and my husband about everything that happened. Let me lay out the family players. My in-laws, Mill and Phil, have 5 kids, eldest Bill, older Sil, my husband, then our problematic Sil. There's also middle Bill, who's eldest Bill's best friend and who Mill and Phil adopted as a teen. When the incident went down 3 weeks ago, eldest Bill and older Sil were there, but middle Bill wasn't, and he's one of those family members who constantly makes excuses for our Sil. When I told everyone I wanted at least 6 months of no contact or even being around Sil, Mill thought it was a good minimum for Sil to realize her behavior wouldn't fly anymore, and Phil actually agreed. That went over smoothly with them, but when Mill and Phil communicated this time out to the rest of the family, especially to middle Bill and his girlfriend, things blew up. This morning, expecting a friendly text, my phone instead lit up with, "I fail to see why you'd ban Sil from the holidays for a simple mistake. Seems kind of excessive and really inconveniences a lot of us for the holidays. You can't even be around her? Grow up. Then, what are you going to do, force her to stay at someone's house while the whole family goes out or something? And, honestly, she's a child, she's allowed to make mistakes. Bad enough Mill and Phil threw her out and now you're going to take the holidays from her too?" And just for context, it was Mill and Phil's decision to stop housing Sil. She pays for a room in an apartment half an hour away, and while the roommates are driving her crazy it's only because everyone's stuck working from home, thanks to COVID. Mill calls it her dose of reality, and Phil insists they should have made her move out a month ago. At that point, I just handed my husband the phone and checked out. I was done, emotionally tapped out. I told him he could handle it however he liked, but definitely not from my phone. This wasn't my circus, not my monkeys. He promptly took screenshots and, in very my husband fashion, sent a big family group text. "It's been brought to my attention that some of you don't agree with my wife/I's decision to exclude Sil from our home during the upcoming holidays. After some thought I've decided that I don't feel comfortable hosting the holidays this year like planned. I'd like to take a break from everyone until they know the whole story, and anyways, because of COVID, I think we should all stay home this year. Unless someone else would like to host. Cheers, husband." We'd already talked about skipping out on hosting the holidays this year. We have the bigger house in our area and have played host for the last 2 years, but this year, with my anxiety peaking and nightmares still haunting me after everything that's gone down, I just can't do it. My husband understood and agreed, and decided this was the perfect year to take a step back. He even asked me to read his message before he sent it. Not long after, texts rolled in from his grandparents, the ones who spoil Sil, demanding to talk ASAP, but my personal phone died, and his was out of charge too. We missed a few calls from his aunt, uncle, and middle Bill, who we're pretty sure is furious. Now, we have a little bet going on whether anyone's bold enough to drop by tomorrow, since we both have the day off, and everyone knows it, to pressure us to change our minds. My husband quipped that if anyone shows up, he'll answer the door naked and say we're busy, just to see who still wants to talk after that. Update 2. I'm a midwife currently focused on telehealth because of the pandemic. Right now, I'm self-isolating for the safety of a pregnant patient at a crucial stage. She's due to hit viability in 3 weeks, so I need to be fully COVID-free before I can even consider stepping back into the clinic. Then it happened. My gran and gramps showed up at my clinic, dragging my Sil with them. The clinic was locked since we weren't expecting appointments, no drop-ins, especially not now. Did they leave when they found the door locked, like any reasonable people would? Of course not, this is just no territory. Instead, they were enraged and determined to yell at someone. They pounded on the door for 10 minutes straight until my clinic's RN finally emerged, phone in hand, with our audio and video recording equipment running, as clearly posted. She refused to let them in and demanded to know who they were. She also told them if it was a real medical emergency, to head to the hospital immediately. When they insisted they had to speak to me, she coolly replied too bad, called the non-emergency line, and reported them for attempting to barge in while the clinic was closed. Then she calmly returned to her office, textbook professionalism. An officer nearby spoke to them and then called me, since I've had Gran and Gramps blocked for ages. I was floored. They actually brought that selfish POS, SIL, to my workplace, risking the health of immunocompromised patients and newborns, and demanded entry? I was livid. I called my boss right away and explained everything. Together, we phoned the police again and ensured a trespassing warning was issued. They got their warning. My husband was just as furious, practically shouting at Gran and Gramps over the phone. Their excuse? Sil supposedly needed to deliver an apology so we could be a family again. Insulted, I took the phone and reminded them that they only meet any possible great-grandchildren if I say so. After hanging up, we called Mill. If you've never heard an angry Swedish lady on the warpath, count yourself lucky. Mill was fuming. My husband reminded me the last time she was this angry, it hadn't ended well for the other party. He took our phones and blocked everyone. We've decided to stop taking calls or visits, and just focus on ourselves this next year. My husband's angry and upset, apologizing repeatedly for his grandparents' behavior. Meanwhile, we're still handling my parents and twin on the opposite front. The restraining order is in place, they signed, so far no explosions, but my twin is losing her mind. I made the decision today to increase my therapy sessions to 3 times a week. I'm absolutely exhausted. Update 3. The restraining order was delivered and both my sperm donor, egg donor, and my twin signed for it. Oddly, my parents didn't kick up a fuss, which I found suspicious given how obsessed my egg donor is with the fact I am the only one in the family who can have biological children. Then I woke up to police at the front door. Turns out my JN grandfather had called in a welfare check, concocting a wild story that my husband beats me daily, keeps me prisoner at home, and humiliates me in front of friends and family. The police told me outright that the claims seemed bogus, especially as JN grandfather claimed most of his info came from my estranged twin, who isn't even allowed to be a witness, because of the restraining order. We invited the officers in, introduced them to our dogs and the ducklings, big hit, and gave them a walkthrough of our happy, peaceful home. They promised to report their findings and forward everything to our attorney. That would be the last welfare check from these parties. Everyone knows now the claims are fake. Our attorney responded fast, firing off a cease and desist warning to my JN grandfather, making it clear we weren't playing around anymore. My JM aunt, my safe harbor who helped me escape, forwarded me screenshots of an unhinged text from my twin. The summary? My twin ranted that I must be controlled by my husband, claimed I was refusing my own family in favor of him, said I looked frail, claimed I had a black eye and injuries, none of it true, and said police had ignored her pleas because of a piece of paper. Her text spiraled into insistence that my husband was doomed to murder me, with even egg donor supposedly worried the sociopath would attack me if I ever became pregnant. We forwarded all of it to our attorney, making sure the paper trail was clear and strong and protecting us from these kinds of fantasy allegations. My job and my husband's were both informed, we're taking no chances with our safety or reputations. Gran and Gramps are now refusing to communicate, demanding an apology from me for our behavior. My husband had a better idea, he threatened to adorn their lawn with 200 pink flamingos, dressed in lacy women's underwear if they kept at it. Sometimes you just have to laugh. Update 4. Sil broke into our home. She didn't take anything valuable, just some random things, and then vanished with Mill's car, fleeing to her new boyfriend a few states away. The in-laws are done with her, utterly cut her off except for legal essentials, and demanded she never set foot in their home again. We moved out to a new apartment in 3 days and told no one where we were going. Sil lost it in a phone call with Mill before her phone was shut off, screaming that I'd lied, ruined the family, and that she'd never return unless my husband divorced me. Meanwhile, I had developed a stress rash that exploded into hives, forcing me to take a leave of absence from work. I spent 2 days in bed, exhausted and overwhelmed. Then, out of the blue, I got a call from a college friend who had been a rock for me during a medical crisis years ago, the surgery that wrecked my insides and left me unable to conceive naturally. He told me about a bizarre message from my twin, who'd reached out to him claiming to be desperately worried DH was beating me and holding me hostage. But since I changed my name post-wedding to something as common as Jane Smith, my old friend brushed her off thinking she had the wrong person, especially since, last he'd heard, I couldn't get pregnant at all. For some reason, my twin doubled down, insisting it was me. He ended up blocking her, then called me to check in and apologize. I was relieved someone else handled it for me. Then our attorney received a furious voicemail from egg donor, demanding my medical records because I'm her mother. My JM aunt handled her with a quick "it's old news, egg donor. Everyone knows about that surgery" and hung up. Now egg donor and twin are frantically violating the restraining order, sending me emails demanding to know why I had my tubes tied. They're basically accusing me of denying them grandchildren, something they outright admitted to wanting, explicitly saying, "We had hoped you would carry a son for twin, but your selfishness is an abhorrent affront to God." To them, I was just a means to an end. Thank whatever higher power is listening that our attorney is already at work dealing with them. Update 5. To everyone who's been urging me to get legal advice, rest assured, I have an excellent attorney and regular contact with law enforcement. Sil ended up in police custody. Middle Bill had taken her in, hoping to get her cleaned up rather than see her land in jail. His girlfriend discovered Sil was using drugs and, unwilling to cover it up, she reported her and moved out. She also forwarded us some seriously disturbing texts between Bill and Gran and Gramps, evidence we quickly sent to Mill/Phil. We sent the girlfriend flowers and wine as a thank you. My husband felt destroyed. It turned out everyone in the family except us had known Sil was using. He couldn't stop blaming himself, convinced he could have gotten her help sooner if he'd only known. I had to remind him, firmly, that these were her choices and she would have to face the consequences. While we were reeling, wth called with an update on my estranged twin. She'd been taken to a specialized clinic after making threats. Our egg donor and sperm donor had fed her a new narrative, that she was responsible for me being childfree, because she was the one who'd tried to hurt or destroy me time and again, both physically and emotionally. In their twisted story, she's the monster and they're the saints. wth updated me that JN grandfather called to let her know twin was now being declared clinically insane. I can see this for what it is, a thinly veiled attempt to scapegoat one child to regain points with the other. If they think I'll let them write this revisionist history, they're sorely mistaken. Play bitch games, win bitch prizes. They've lost me, and soon I'll be leaving the country to make sure they never get near us again. I'm going to go scratch the clinic cat and see if she'll snuggle with me. I could really use that comfort right now. Update 6. My biological parents, whom I call the egg and sperm donor, are in serious trouble. You might remember how they tried pinning all the abuse I endured on my estranged twin, as if I would just conveniently forget the years of cruelty they subjected me to, let alone the times they enabled my twin's behavior towards me. Their scheme didn't work, and I'm beyond relieved I never attempted contact with them. Turns out, half their story was a flat-out lie. While it's true my twin ended up in the hospital, the reason wasn't what they claimed. My twin's meltdown wasn't some unprovoked episode that led to commitment. It was the horrifying result of 3 straight days of abuse at their hands. They deprived her of food and water, kept her awake all hours to scream at her, and refused to let her leave. Even as she begged for relief, they escalated, hitting her and throwing things. By the time she went for urgent care, she was physically injured, and while she was being seen, she broke down completely. That's when she was rushed to the hospital. Her doctor and mental health team got the police involved immediately, and now we're on the verge of seeing charges brought against my biological parents. Their reputations have been irreparably trashed, and according to our lawyer, a jail sentence of several years is likely. Finally, I feel free from their shadow. We're set to leave in 30 days, and although DH's family is in turmoil over our decision, I'm keeping my attention on the move. We have so much left to organize, and DH insists we can deal with his side of the family later. Here's to hoping everything keeps looking up. Update 7. We did it, we left without a word to anyone, and it turned out to be a lifesaver. We arrived safely a few days ago, quarantining at a friend's house, animals in tow. Everyone's happy and healthy, except for me, which I'll get into in a second. DH has visibly relaxed, reconnecting with old friends and returning to his usual, playful self. Yesterday, he finally called his family to break the news that we were gone for good. Not everyone took it well. His grandparents were furious, demanding to know why we'd left the US and gone back home, accusing us of risking our stability. DH handled it with incredible composure. He's mastered the art of grey rocking, thank you to those who taught me how to explain it. He made it clear, we'll remain financially responsible if they need help, as we have in the past, but we are not coming back. We want to build our life here. The real estate agent we'd contacted previously had already shown us some lovely homes virtually, and just recently, we put in an offer and got a response. But here comes the twist, I haven't been feeling well. While we were still in the US, we did virtual interviews with the fertility clinic, and my new doctor approved us to begin treatment, pending a few tests. The process won't start for a while, but on his advice, I've already discontinued my old migraine medication. I won't lie, I feel rough with these migraines now, and DH has also reduced his coffee, which has left him grumpy in the mornings. When DH let his mom know I was unwell, Gran couldn't resist a dig. People shouldn't be running away to go have babies away from their families. It isn't right. DH, already in a mood from coffee withdrawal, finally snapped. He'd never raised his voice at her before, but he made it clear the blame rested on her and the rest of his family, not us. Gran began her usual melodramatic wailing, but DH shut her down. Shove it, I don't want to hear fake cries from the kettle today. He even rescinded our offer of financial assistance for them, given their attitude, and the call ended with Mill hanging up. Now, a segment of the family is demanding an apology, but we're standing our ground. Sil, now sober after jail, also tried reaching out, but we're not interested. Meanwhile, disappointing news from my end. The charges against my biological parents were dropped with zero explanation. Twin was quickly checked into a psychiatric inpatient facility, a maneuver I suspect was orchestrated by my parents to clear the decks for their version of events. Now, they're playing the innocent victim's card. Our daughter is unstable and we're suffering. The hypocrisy is almost too much to bear. They even asked our attorney about mediation regarding the restraining order. Our attorney took the opportunity to inform them that we'd immigrated and wouldn't be returning, then told us he'd no longer be representing us past a set date. On our lawyer's advice, I reached out to their pastor, finally giving my side with all the evidence, emails, texts, voicemails. He was emotional and promised quick action. By the next day, my parents were out of all church activities. And then, out of nowhere this morning, they emailed DH directly. How they got his address, I can't imagine, laying out their latest plan, to buy a home near us and request our participation in counseling so they could make it up to me for my neglectful childhood. The catch? Drop the restraining order. I couldn't have picked a better time to disappear from their reach. 18 days of chaos, but I'm so grateful for everyone who has supported me and the practical advice I've received. Oh, and to clarify for anyone curious, I'm not actually in Sweden. My family background spans a couple countries. I practice the traditions of both, speak both languages, but consider myself Swedish at heart. Update 8. Recently, I discovered someone tried to open a credit account in my name. Thankfully, precautions were already in place. My credit has long been frozen. I require a specific IRS PIN for taxes, and my SSN is locked down. All measures taken to prevent my biological parents from pulling any stunts like this. They'd always threatened it. Funny enough, they had planned to buy a home near us, but their plans crumbled. Their offer fell through when a staggering $180,000 debt in my egg donor's name torpedoed it. I learned she had squandered $90,000 on my twins' wedding and honeymoon, then used more on the divorce, and racked up even more unrelated debt. JY Aunt, keeping her ear to the ground, heard everything from JN grandfather, who, interestingly, is starting to soften. JY Aunt warned me to review my credit because my parents somehow managed to afford a nice rental and were gloating about it, the address just down the street from my old home. Apparently, they had tried using my name as a secondary applicant on the lease. Fortunately, with the credit freeze, they couldn't get past the verification process, and the rental was denied. Left with only my sperm donor's abysmal credit, they lost out on both the house and the rental. Even the house they sold had a lien, leaving them with barely anything. Now, they're couch hopping at JN grandfather's, but when he learned the truth about the rental application, he kicked them out, disgusted by their behavior. He told them he wouldn't have financially dependent louses in his home, and now they're sleeping in their car. I've already filed an identity theft report. Even though nothing went through, attempted fraud is still serious. JN grandfather's disgust was palpable. He even admitted maybe I was handling things the right way all along. He still can't quite accept the full picture of what they did to me, but now, whenever they fight at his place, they turn violent with each other. He even reminded them that he lost his own first house thanks to his brother's identity theft years ago. It almost feels surreal watching their downfall from afar. With twins' care suddenly becoming JN grandfather's responsibility, I sense a storm brewing. But I'm thousands of miles away, safe and excited with my husband as we get ready to begin our IVF journey in January. For the first time in ages, I feel like I'm actually floating on cloud 9.